Hi, it's Paul Vanis with GreatDad.com, and thank you for joining this special, extra, complimentary episode of Great Dad Talks, where we're speaking specifically about resilience and how to get it. And I'm interviewing different experts on resilience, mostly coaches who are talking about their success in helping people gain this very important life skill, how to bounce back from everyday challenges, big and small. I would invite you to also come and spend some time with me talking about my own approach to resilience and any of the issues that you have around fatherhood. You can find a scheduling link at GreatDad.com/go. Okay, see you in a minute. Hey, it's Paul Banis with GreatDad.com, and I'm here with my supplementary weekly podcast focusing on resilience because it's something that I'm studying right now, and I'm really interested in how dads can develop more resilience, not only for their own personal success at work and at home, but also to model that for their kids. And today I've got a guest who helps entrepreneurs out with burnout and these. I'm sure these skills are translatable to anybody, whether they're in a corporate environment or a entrepreneurial situation. So welcome, Rob Tracz. And I'm sorry I didn't ask you if that's the way you pronounce your name.
Uh, Close enough, I guess. I pronounce it Tracy.
Crazy. Okay.
Yeah, was never actually got the full enunciation. My dad used to always joke around. He's like, "Oh, just however you want to go about it." So when he passed away, he never actually told me the correct pronunciation. So there we
That's
go.
good.
Good
And
enough.
I love your just willingness just to go with it. Whatever,
Yeah,
whatever, just don't call me late for dinner kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So you work with entrepreneurs of both sexes, men and women,
Yes,
but
yep.
is it usually end up being men who are in the entrepreneurial area?
That's kind of like where my marketing kind of world is towards more men, because I most powerfully positioned to serve who I previously was like kind of like a quote that I got from this guy Rory Vaden, who's a mentor of mine, and that's who when I'm talking about my story and sharing things and overcoming a lot of the issues like burnout and breaking through stagnation, I'm constantly thinking of my younger version of myself.
Hmm.
So that's who I kind of market to towards, but my client profile right now is about 50-50 male to
Okay.
female.
Okay. Great. Well,
Yeah.
I'm really interested in how you don't have any kids of your own, but you come with this expertise of having studied this and having talked to a lot of people in this situation. So I'm really curious about men who are dads who are trying to navigate this time in their lives where the pressures at home start to grow, and especially if you're an entrepreneur, those pressures of work are like every day, just trying to make the money work for the month, and how people are able to work through those times. And you say that as an entrepreneur yourself, you had to kind of rebuild or tear down, rebuild yourself after having gone through some of those struggles. Is that a good way of expressing it?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. So when I'm talking about resilience and like everyone has their own gauge on what they can handle and what they can go through. And I look at resilience as your gauge. The more resilience you have, the more you can handle and more you can kind of push and you can kind of grind through. In the entrepreneurial world, that comes up in forms of long hours, busy days, sometimes 6, 7 days a week of constantly working. And you're having conversations with a lot of different people, and you're really stretched your comfort zone in a lot of different directions. And if you don't have your resilience doesn't reflect where you want to go with your business or yourself as an individual, then that's going to reflect on your business and yourself, and you're going to be kind of pigeonholed to what you can achieve and what you can create based off of the resilience. And that's in my coaching, that's the first principle. We work on building that up.
So is that the number one symptom you see of a shortage of resilience, is the lack of energy versus motivation? I think those are two different things, right? I mean, just being able to grind through, like you say, those days and weeks of just keeping at it with the end in mind, versus I just don't even want to get up today and face the challenges. So is it energy more than motivation?
It's a good question. I think they're they're different coins actually. So in my coaching, the three different phases or dimensions is look good, feel good, do great things. And it starts with that looking good. And in that looking good phase, there's 2 points. We're building resilience and we're increasing your energy and motivation through intentional consumption. So when we're specifically talking about the resilience principle, it's all about moving that, expanding that comfort zone, getting comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's that gauge that I was going to, that you can actually handle more of those longer days or those uncomfortable actions. The motivation and the energy, that gets into the second principle, where we need to develop the intentionality. So the intentional consumption. My background's in strength and conditioning with nutrition and sports performance as like the underlying tones. So for me, it's easy to dive into the nutritional aspect of things and entrepreneurs and individuals and making sure that they start to shift the focus on to getting better quality meals in their everyday life. But
Hmm.
I take it a step further and go beyond the meals and get into the media as well. Because a lot of the things that you're consuming, the books, the music, the TV shows, the social media, all those things are going to impact your motivation level. So if I'm just scrolling, I'm watching cat videos on Instagram for 4 hours a day after work, I'm not going to have that motivation. I'm not going to have that drive to wake up the next day and get right into the grind again. I'm going to be, oh, I'd rather be cozied up and watching more cat videos, I guess. So if you want to talk about the motivation, that where I think is you need that intentional component of the awareness of where you're currently at and what
Right.
you're consuming. And then also, how do I move that forward a little bit further?
Okay. So you said those are the first two, and then there was a third one, the third.
So yeah, in my coaching, I've got 6 principles actually. So there's two
Okay.
principles per area. So the look good is all about building that resilience and that intentionality. The feeling good is about gaining clarity on who you are as an individual, and then optimizing your rules and your routines. So look good is resilience and intentionality. Feel good is clarity on who you are and optimizing your rules and routines. So like your habits and your schedules. And then finally, the last part is that doing great things. And in order to do great things, you need to be around other great people and really focus on your support system and who you're connected with, like your network. And then once you optimize your team and your team around you is helping you, moving you forward, then you can finally start creating your own luck and creating opportunities and really setting yourself up to get to the next level, which once you get the first 5 principles down.
Right.
Sorry if I threw a lot out at you on
No,
that
no,
one.
I think that all sounds very logical, and it sounds like a lot of what we hear. But I'd say to everybody, anybody listening, is that the value of this is not just knowing those 6 things. It's working with a coach like yourself that keeps you on point and keeps you actually developing those into real habits rather than just platitudes or a sign on the wall. So I'm curious because I think a lot of people hear that and they think, oh yeah, I could do all that. And they probably do need a coach to keep them going on that. But a lot of people are a little bit suspicious that, oh, this is some snake oil from somebody who's got a plan and it worked for him, or he says it works for him. What was your experience that you believe all this stuff? Like you weren't born this way, which I think is a big comfort to a lot of people. Like we're not all born to be billionaires, but you were able to take a hard look at yourself and recreate this, create this.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that process.
Yeah. So as I kind of mentioned before, background strength and conditioning. So if you're not familiar, think of like a personal trainer for high level athletes. I was and typically when you become a strength and conditioning coach, you have 2 different routes. You either go collegiate and try to get with a professional team down the road, or you go private and kind of build your own book and go your own route. And I chose to go to the private sector, which gave me that taste of the entrepreneurial world. I was still working for another gym, but it gave me the freedom to kind of build my own client base and take on as much responsibility as I wanted to. And to me, as a go-getter, sports being a big background, I was like, oh, well, I can just work as much as I want. That's great.
Yeah.
So I quickly scaled my book of clients up to the point where I was working 10 to 12-hour days, 7 days a week for almost 3 years in a row. I
Mm.
was skipping holidays, I was skipping important weddings and friends' babies being born and such. And it got to the point where my dad got sick with pancreatic cancer, and I would continue to
Mm.
work instead of spending time with him.
Oh, wow.
And it took me losing some of the most important time and opportunities I had to realize that that's not what I need to be doing. And a year or so after my dad passed, I'm sitting home alone by myself, quiet apartment. I'm trying to fill my schedule over the weekend because a lot of clients were gone traveling. And instead of enjoying my time off, I was panicking because I couldn't fill my schedule. And a full schedule was really just a distraction from what life had actually became. And in that moment there, that weekend, I realized like, hey, this isn't who I am. This isn't what I want to be doing. What do I do? How do I go back to who I was? As a strength and conditioning coach, supposed to be the epitome of health and strength, but I was super weak. I was out of shape and physically and mentally just depleted. So then I went back to what has worked for me over the years. And that's when I realized that the first thing for me was building that resilience. And the way that that came was when I was a young kid, my parents got divorced. I was this dweeby, out of shape little young kid moving around a bunch of different school districts. Finally, when we set up base in our hometown, I made friends with this other little kid, and we would play like Pokemon and video games and such. And his dad was actually the youth football coach, so he got me to come out to practice.
Hmm.
And I learned two things that day, first day of football practice. First thing is you can't wear jeans to football practice. So I found that out
That's a
right
good
off the
lesson.
bat. And the second thing I learned was that the cooler kids or the popular kids were in better shape. They were stronger, they were faster, they were leading the warm-ups, they knew everybody's names. And I was in a position where I couldn't even complete the warm-up lap. But what I could do is I could take home what I was learning from practice. Couldn't remember a lot of the plays and stuff, but I remember the warm up and got to the point where I was doing the stretches and doing some of the push ups and some of the squats on my own at home. And reflecting on it was, hey, the more that I do these certain things, the more that stronger that I'm going to get, then the more playing time I can have. And
Mm.
then looking back, the more playing time that I got, the more that the guys on the team would start to hang out with me outside of practice. And the more that that happened, the more birthday parties I got invited to. And the more birthday parties I got invited to, the more my schooling had to be on point because I couldn't go if my grades weren't up.
Right.
And it just snowballed into taking care of myself, pushing myself physically would build that physical resilience so that I could have the strength to move on throughout the day. And at the same time, by pushing myself, I was challenging and growing my cognitive or my mental resilience. And that was what carried me on into rest of life and going to grad school and playing college football, winning state championship for rugby and captaining a whole lot of different teams. But it started with that physical and mental challenge. And when I'm teaching a lot of my clients, I use this resilience matrix that I created. And if you think of like a graph, like on the x-axis, the horizontal, that's your physical. And the more you push yourself physically, the further you go down the line here.
Mhm.
And the vertical or the y-axis is your cognitive or your mental challenges that you're going. So the more that you challenge yourself physically and the more that you challenge yourself cognitively, it's going to plot you on this graph. And just like diamonds looking good, you need to have the appropriate amount of pressure from the physical challenge and the heat from the mental challenge. And that's how you can make sure that you look good and shine like a diamond because you figure out where you're at currently on that matrix. And then you can see, okay, maybe I need to push myself a little bit harder by starting an exercise routine or trying something that pushes me out of my comfort zone. Or maybe my cognitive challenges are a little bit low and I'm not stimulating myself mentally enough. Maybe I need to pick up a new hobby, or maybe I need to learn a new language or pick up some new skills like communication skills and things like that, because that'll help you navigate that resilience matrix until a point where you're shining like a diamond.
So in your experience with clients, I guess I'm hoping that the answer, because I think a lot of people they try some of these things out. Like they'll go to the gym, especially after the holidays, and they'll work out really hard at it. They don't see any effect immediately, or they quit drinking for a month, but they no big deal. When you're with your clients, and maybe in your own experience, was this progression linear, or did it go in fits and starts, and you had to kind of believe in the process to see the full effect? And I think we're all kind of imperfect human beings, and we got to give ourselves a lot of grace in a lot of this stuff. But I, I'm always wondering, like, how long, what does it take for somebody to say, wow, this really works, rather than look good in the, the self-help book I bought.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's when people have like the deadlines and they're looking for the quick fix. Like
Yeah, they always
quick
do.
quick wins are great. But I'm in the business of creating change, and it's something that you're going to need to adapt and change for yourself. So I really put a lot of emphasis on paying attention to what works for you. So as an individual, if
Mm,
you just read a book, you're like, oh, I gotta run 100 miles like David Goggins to be strong and resilient. You're probably going to crash and burn. As a matter of fact,
right.
I did something very similar to that last year. I tried to run for 24 hours as far as I could, and
Wow.
I pushed myself a little bit further than I've ever ran before. I ended up completing 53 miles, but I didn't train well for it, so I was pretty banged up afterwards. But that was a lesson for me. Like, hey, that's the far end of my resilience matrix. That's going a little bit too far, because too much of that physical challenge is going to leave you crushed and crumbled. Same thing with the cognitive one too. If I were to sign up for a PhD level course on like marketing or something, or computer tech, I'm probably way out of my bounds and I'm going to be burnt out. I'm not going to
Mhm.
be able to sustain that. So that's not going to push me at the appropriate speed. So identifying where you're at currently and looking to push the needle a little bit further and figuring out what it is that works for you. Because if I'm telling you to go out, you got to play pickleball 3 days a week because that's a little bit better. If you hate pickleball, you'd rather be out golfing. Like, you should be golfing a little bit more. You got to stick to what works for you.
Yeah. 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 So when you're coaching clients, do you look for areas where they can get some of that immediate success, some quick wins, so they feel like they're making progress? Or how do you, I can see how you can choose things or help them figure out which areas to focus in first, but how do you keep them on the treadmill so they do see this continuous progress?
Yeah, it's about kind of shifting away from like the process goals and the outcome goals. So
Oh,
it's
right.
away
Okay.
from the outcome to the process. Like, hey,
Yeah.
okay, we work together, because for me, coaching is us working together. Consulting, in my eyes, is me kind of giving you the direction. But when we're working together, it's like, hey, you seem to like these X, Y, and Z. What if we were to take X, Y, and Z and do them like 3 or 4 times or whatever it might be? And then when we work together, then we figure out those milestones. We figure out the process. We figure it out together. So then we hit the milestones together as a team, and then we celebrate those small wins, those small quick wins. And then over time, you check the box, check the box. All of a sudden, you're looking at a scoreboard where you're killing it, and you look back and reflect on it, like, wow, yeah, I've come a long way. What's the next step? How do I push it a little bit further?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and is, well, I guess, coming back to that whole burnout question, you see people. I mean, what age groups are your clients in? That are there many that are in midlife who are dealing with these things, or is it mostly people more your age?
Yeah, I've got people all different types of ages. I've got younger kids right now who are kind of in the tail end of college where they're not
Hmm.
really sure what their career, their profession. I've got more individuals around my age in their mid to late 30s who are shifting careers, and they're trying new things, and they're trying to get up writing books or starting new businesses and different things. And then I have other individuals who are retired from one profession and now they're looking to do something
Yeah.
else, or they're looking to take on new projects. So individuals in all different age brackets. And what I'm really teaching is personal development. So it's always moving yourself forward, because push everybody's at different stages, and it's
Yeah.
different stages of the game, playing different positions. And if somebody's interested in changing and playing somewhere different or
Yeah.
doing something different, there's got to be things that to help them move forward if they're feeling stuck. If someone's coming to me and they're like, hey, everything's going great, it's one thing after another, boom 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 boom, then I'm like, yeah, awesome, let's go celebrate. But you might not necessarily be in a
Right.
position to need my help
Well,
at this
I
time.
think a lot of people also worry that if they are burnt out and they take a step off of the merry-go-round, that then they won't reignite a passion for something else. Then they will end up on the couch or doing something that doesn't pay the bills or, has a bunch of negative consequences. Do you find you're able to like reignite that passion with somebody who's in middle age who maybe is tired of their corporate job, but suddenly and is saying I'm out, I'm ready to quit, we're going to sell the house, I'm going to move to a farm or something, but they're able to re-find a new passion that where they can be as successful, or do they kind of in those cases do they kind of put that behind and move on to something maybe more life satisfying but not as successful in the traditional way?
No, yeah, if someone's in a situation that sounds like that, I would like the flow of of what I do in my coaching is starting that, pushing the challenges, and in that challenges, you're moving yourself more, you're learning new things, and that opens up new doors before they're ready. So those doors are popping up down
Oh
the
yeah,
road.
okay.
So then once we get a little more intentional with what we're consuming, that starts to motivate us, that starts to energize us with the food and the information we're taking in. So now we're starting to move a little bit further down that road at a quicker rate. So now we've got our vehicle, we're moving, we're going a little bit faster. Then once we kind of dive into figuring out, I use an acronym FLAG, like fly your pirate's flag to really understand yourself. And the acronym FLAG, F is your foundational values. So we dive deep into,
Yeah.
okay, what do you hold true to yourself? What do you really put into your values basket? A lot of people don't know a lot, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
tough. So spending some time really digging deep and figuring those things out, that helps guide a little bit. The next letter L is your lifestyle traits. So what are the things you like to do? What are the things that make you unique? We have some fun ones like diving into your favorite color, your favorite car, things like that. But then also other things like the music and stuff, and bringing awareness to what do all those things mean to me? Like, how does that define me? Like, for example, my favorite color is red. To me, that shows anger, aggression. It's a little bit tough, but it can also be passionate and caring too, with love. And I feel like that represents me in a lot of the things that I like to do. So it's fun exercise like that. A in flag is aspirations. So what is it you want to achieve? One of my goals was building a community, and I didn't realize why or how, but going through this for myself was realizing that at a young age, my parents divorced. It was tough for me to make friends. I found family and connection community through the different sports teams. So as I grew and developed and changed as an athlete, so too did my different teams. And then out of college, lacking that, I was like, okay, well, where am I going to find that? And after the strength and conditioning and growing and evolving as a communicator and a coach, now I'm learning that I need to connect with more individuals, entrepreneurs, and grow my community of the prime performance coaching world. And so that's just for me knowing my aspirations, where I want to go. I want to make sure that I have a lot of surrounding people with me.
Hmm.
And then the last one, G, or flag, G is your growth opportunities. So really knowing your strengths and your weaknesses. So for me, like tech and like tools and different technology and apps and things like that, I'm not really that great with, but I tend to be a little bit stronger of a communicator and a leader. Finding myself in leadership roles and captain positions on all these teams, I like to get around people, motivate, and bring people up. So if I can do that, then I can hire somebody to help me handle the tech part and help me build the virtual community while I'm going out there and actually growing the community itself. And then knowing a lot of those things and information, that'll help kind of guide you. So like you're not just like, all right, well, let me just quit here and join and like buy a farm and start doing that. Because that might not be aligned with your values, your lifestyle,
Right.
and
Yeah.
aspirations and stuff. So you
Yeah.
really got to know yourself more before you can dive into new ventures and new journeys.
Yeah. Sometimes our fantasies should remain fantasies. Yeah, well, this has really been interesting. I really love your approach to a lot of this. It sounds like you've really done a lot of thinking about it. Uh, People can find you. I really recommend every time I talk to a coach, I always recommend to take advantage if you're offering free time with a coach, because there's nothing better than having somebody pay attention to you for 45 minutes or an hour and really talk to you about what you want out of life. And you offer a free coaching session at survivingthesidehustle.com/free call. And I think anybody interested in this conversation would get a lot out of that conversation. And I imagine you talk about I mean, obviously the framework of what you would do, but do you try to dive into some of these basic building blocks even during that call?
Yeah, I mean, every individual, every call is going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I really got to try to figure out what works best for you, and then seeing how I can help with that, and giving some frameworks, giving some homeworks, things and things that
Mm,
you can do on your own. If we can knock that out, and then you can go on and be successful just from the call, then that's great. And then I'd love to just follow along and watch your success as a friend. And not never going to find that out though unless we connect and communicate. And yeah, it's just about like connecting and seeing what we can do.
yeah,
Use the tools that I've learned and I've gathered and created over the years. And if it helps, then that's awesome. Let's let
yeah,
it hit the ground running.
yeah. Well, everybody owes themselves a gift of that guided introspection. Well, Rob, thanks a lot for making time to talk with me about this. I really coaches have a lot of different feelings about resilience and how you build it. There are a lot of common themes always in them, but a lot of different processes and different frameworks to to get there. And I think if you're looking for a coaching program, it's important to find out the ones you feel comfortable with and the coach you feel comfortable with. And thanks for exposing us to what you're thinking about. So again, survivingthesidehustle.com/free call. Do it.
All right, Paul, I love it. Thank you so much. And really, thank you for taking the time to sit down and connect with me today. I really appreciate it.
Sure. Okay. Paul Vance with GreatDad.com. You can find my coaching services at GreatDad.com/go. Okay. Until next time, stay strong.